Welcome to 5 after midnight. Turn back while you still can. One.
Many years back, I was driving along rather late at night on a road near the hospital I was interning at, in a shady part of Detroit, back when the city was even more dangerous. There were only a few cars on the road at the time, and at that time I had been living there for only a few months, so I did not know about most of the dangers that were present in the city. People buying old cop cars and pulling over people and robbing them. People jacking cars that were stopped at red lights, etc. Anyway, my damn car's tire suddenly gets wrecked, and I managed to pull to the side of the road. It was late, in one of the many bad parts of town, but I did not really understand that at the time. I am very naive to the city. So I got out and get ready to change my tires. I was not a member of the AAA. I was working on the back tire that was shredded when suddenly another car pulled up and stopped in front of my car. I assumed he was there to help me, which was stupid, so I got up to talk to him. The man in the other car got out and proceeded to walk over and crouch near my front tire with some tools and started to take the tire off. I was rather confused at this, so I asked the man, "Hey, what are you doing?" He stopped to turn to me, face completely serious, and says, "You take the back tires and the radio, I'll take the front tires and the battery. Fair." It took me a moment to register that he was indeed stealing my tires, so I just blurted out without thinking, "This is my car." The guy stopped, stared at me for a few seconds, then picked up his tools, got in his car, and left. I finished changing the tires, and only a few minutes later did I realize just how dangerous it was, being alone by my car on a dark stretch of road in the bad part of town.
2.
I got mugged by two gentlemen at gunpoint in downtown Detroit. One of my friends tried to run, but was snagged by one of the muggers and punched in the mouth, putting his teeth through his lip. This irritated the man with the gun, who, being behind me, took out his frustration on my skull. He hit me in the back of the head with the gun, with the muzzle pointing up. The gun went off, and I dropped to the ground. My friends all say that at that point, they thought I had a bullet in my head. Lucky for all parties involved, I got up. The muggers ran away. I suffered some staples in the back of my head, and my friend had them in his lip. There was blood sprayed on my buddy's car from both injuries.
3.
This actually just happened to me a couple of days ago. I'm from Texas, but I go to school in upstate New York. After the spring semester, I go home for a week or so and then drive back to New York because I have 2 summer jobs and a summer course. The night I get there, I go to my fraternity, which I had just moved my stuff into from my freshman dorm because I went home for the long weekend break. Neither of my jobs had started yet, and it was a long weekend for Memorial Day, so I meet up with my big brother in his house and we decide to get a little drunk and play some Pong. At 2 a.m., my judgment is impaired, and I haven't eaten in a long time, and I'm tired from a long drive, and I decide to go get pizza. It's a small town, and pizza is only 2 blocks from my house, so I go. I know this is a sketchy town, but I've gotten wasted and gotten pizza from the same place at late hours tons of times before, especially during late hours, and I'm usually fine. So, on my way back home, I get accosted by 3 people. One kid who looked about 12, but he was up to my neck and I'm 6 feet tall and 19 years old. And he was with two girls looking about 20. I think he was trying to impress them because he starts pushing me up against the wall and prompting me to fight him. I tried to disregard it. This guy's obviously not a threat. I could take him in a fight, and I've been in my fair share of brawls in high school. Anyway, after a couple shoves, the girls look at each other and start saying, "We better get out of here," and "Yeah, let's go." The kid and the girls book it about 50 to 100 feet away from me when the little kid starts turning around and yells, "You're bleeding!" I stop. I'm in a little bit of shock, still watching them leave, making sure they don't decide to come back. I'm a little on edge, and as I stand there not moving, what the kid says registers in my shocked, on-edge, drunken mind, and I feel a warm liquid start dripping down my leg. At first I thought I pissed myself, but I could swear to God I hadn't let my bladder go. I look down and there is blood all down my left leg, and that side of my shorts are just waterlogged in blood. There is a big slice in my shorts, so I lift them up and there is a wide open, gushing stab wound in my leg. That little bastard had stabbed me for no reason, and I hadn't felt it because I was too wasted. So I get back to my house, and there is my brother leaving to get food as I enter. I tell him my short story and a few panicked words, and I'm obviously bleeding all over. He responds, "No fucking way." I think he was a little drunk too, but we circle the same block together 5 or 6 times looking for this kid to beat the shit out of him, until a cop pulls up and asks me why my leg is drenched in blood. 5 hours of waiting in the ER later, I get a few staples in my leg, and I'm on my way home. When I was 7 years old, I had one of the worst experiences ever on a public bus. It wasn't anything traumatic, but I never got on a bus again until I reached middle school. And believe me, my mom tried to get me on the bus, but I would cry and absolutely refuse to get on the bus for any reason. My mom finally gave up, and for the next 4 years of my life, my mom and I walked everywhere. And now the story begins. In kindergarten, I had a very dear friend. My mom had also become very good friends with my friend's mother. However, my friend moved to a different city when we were entering 2nd grade. Being such good friends, my mom had no problem taking the 3 buses that we needed to take to visit my friend. It was a good 3 to 4 hour bus ride. We had done this numerous times before, and then one day, something happened. Sitting peacefully, minding my own business with my mother by my side, everything is going just fine. We're about to reach our destination, probably no more than an hour away. When all of a sudden, a man gets on the bus. He had wild hair, and it resembled Sideshow Bob's hair very much, as in messy, dirty, and all over the place. The man also had a very rugged appearance. He looked homeless and a bit crazy. As soon as he gets on the bus, he starts shouting that he has a bomb under his jacket and that he's going to blow up the bus unless we give him money. He paces back and forth, screaming at the top of his lungs. I remember the bus driver arguing with him. I guess the bus driver knew the guy was freaking nuts and called him on his bluff. As you can imagine, me, being 7 years old, was totally terrified, and I cried my little heart out. I held my mom as strong as my little arms could. My mom held me deep against her stomach, doing the best she could to comfort me, but nothing at that moment could stop me from crying. Eventually, the lunatic leaves. I don't remember much of what happened afterwards, except that my mom took me off the bus and tried to comfort me. After this day, I never saw my friend for a really long time. I was only able to see him when my dad wasn't working, which didn't happen very much. I would say after that day, I probably only saw him like once every year for his birthday, until eventually we stopped seeing each other altogether. At the age of 7, having some dude get on the bus and say he's gonna blow it up is awfully scary. This is one of the scariest moments of my entire life. One night I was driving to a local park to play sand volleyball with some friends. The road to get to the park wound behind some businesses near the interstate, and I was cruising along happily, windows down, music up, when I noticed 2 guys running down the middle of the road. Not the exercise kind of run either. It was the shit's going down right now kind of run. I didn't quite know what to make of it, so I hung back a bit. They eventually reach a 4-way stop sign intersection and take off right under the interstate. I pull up to the stop sign maybe 30 seconds later and look to see what these 2 characters were up to, and they were crouching behind a bush that is maybe 10 feet from my car. They look at each other, look at me, then one of the guys says, "Get him!" and they both lunge towards me. Naturally, I punch it and drive off. I thought it was weird, and I definitely was a little scared, but nothing too bad. I told my friends about it when I got to the park, and we had a laugh, and that was sort of the end of it. 2 hours later, the police invade this park with the dogs, helicopter, the whole 9 yards. They start asking us questions, and when we finally got a cop to fill us in, he tells us that 2 escaped convicts, both convicted murderers, had a stolen car which had broken down on the interstate a few miles from the park, and they had fled to the surrounding area. He showed me pictures, and it was the guys that I had seen. The dogs tracked the scents from the abandoned car to the park's parking lot. Needless to say, I was freaked out for a few days when I realized that there was a couple of murderers on the loose who may or may not have had some sort of vendetta. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the show. If you have a story to share, send us an email, like us on Facebook, share, like, and subscribe.